The hover truck made a sound like grinding metal before it died completely. Richard Webb hit the steering column once, then twice, but nothing happened. He sat in silence for a moment, watching the heat waves shimmer across the endless orange sand ahead. The burning flats stretched in every direction. And he was stuck right in the middle of the worst part. He was 58 years old and thought he had left dangerous situations behind when he retired from the Earth Defense Forces. Now he ran supply routes to remote settlements. Boring work that paid enough. But boring was better than dodging plasma fire. At least it was supposed to be. Richard climbed out of the truck and felt the heat hit him like a physical force. Even with the sun filters built into his transport gear, the temperature was brutal. Dust Haven earned its name. This planet was nothing but desert and rocks, useful only because it sat between human and Dracor territories as neutral ground. Traders came here. Desperate people came here. Smart people stayed away. He popped the engine compartment and saw the problem immediately. A coolant line had cracked, probably from the constant rattling over rough terrain. He could fix it, but it would take time. Time meant water. He checked his supply and did the math in his head. 6 containers, 8 hours of work in this heat. He would make it barely. Richard pulled out his tools and got to work. The metal was too hot to touch even through gloves. He had to wait for shade, work in short bursts, then retreat to the truck cabin to cool down. After an hour, he had made some progress. After 2 hours, he was halfway done. After 3 hours, he saw something moving in the distance. At first, he thought it was a heat mirage. But the shapes were too solid, too dark against the pale sand. He squinted and saw 3 large forms near a cluster of rocks about 200 meters away. They were not moving much. Richard grabbed his emergency binoculars and looked. His hands went cold despite the heat. Dracor warriors. 3 of them. Richard's mind raced through 30 years of military training. Dracor were the enemy. They had been at war with human colonies for over a decade. He had lost friends to Dracor raids. His best friend and co-pilot had died when a Dracor fighter wing hit their transport convoy. He could still see the fire, still hear the screams. These 3 were not attacking anyone. They were collapsed on the ground, barely moving. Their scales looked dull instead of shining. Their wings were folded awkwardly. One of them tried to lift an arm and failed. Richard lowered the binoculars. He should finish his repairs and leave. Nobody would blame him. The war was still happening. These were enemy soldiers. They would kill him if the situation was reversed. Probably. He looked at his water containers. He looked at the 3 shapes in the distance. He thought about his daughter, who barely spoke to him anymore because she thought he was a coward for retiring. He thought about all the things he had done in the war that still kept him awake at night. He thought about the kind of man he wanted to be. Richard grabbed 2 water containers and started walking. The sand was soft and made every step difficult. His legs ached. Sweat poured down his face. The Dracor grew larger as he approached, and he could see details now. They were massive, easily 9 feet tall even lying down. Their scales were deep red and gold, made for retaining heat in cold space but working against them here. Their reptilian faces had long snouts and sharp teeth. One of them had scars across her neck and shoulders. The scarred one saw him first. Her eyes opened, vertical pupils contracting. She tried to move, to get up, but could only lift her head slightly. Her mouth opened and a raspy sound came out. Her voice was like rocks grinding together. Human. The other 2 stirred. A younger male with bright gold markings tried to reach for a weapon that was not there. The third, another male with medical insignia on his armor, just stared. Richard stopped 10 feet away. He could see their condition clearly now. They were dying. Dehydration, heat exhaustion, maybe worse. Their breathing was shallow. Their tongues were swollen. They had been here for days. The scarred female spoke again, each word clearly painful. "Kill us, be done." Richard shook his head. He knelt down slowly, showing his hands were empty except for the water containers. The 3 Dracor watched him like they were seeing something impossible. He opened the first container and held it out toward the female. She stared at it. The younger male hissed something in their language, angry sounds. The medic spoke softly, also in Dracor tongue. The female looked from the water to Richard's face and back again. "Poison?" "Just water," Richard said. "You need it more than I do right now." She did not move for a long moment. Then slowly, painfully, she reached out with a clawed hand and took the container. She sniffed it, hesitated, then drank. Not small sips, but deep gulps. When she lowered the container, her eyes were different. Less glazed, more aware. She passed the container to the medic, who drank next. Then the young male, who drank but never took his eyes off Richard. Richard opened the second container and set it down within their reach. The female drank again, more controlled this time. Color was returning to her scales. The medic was checking his companions, professional instincts taking over. The young male spoke in broken human language. Why do this? Richard sat back on his heels. He was tired. The walk had taken more out of him than he expected. Because you were thirsty. The female studied him with intelligent eyes. You are a soldier, I see it. We are enemy. I was a soldier, Richard said. 30 years. Transport pilot. Lost a lot of friends to your people. Then why? The medic asked, his human words clearer. Richard looked at the empty desert around them. I saw 3 warriors dying of thirst. I had water. Seemed simple. The female made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. Simple. Nothing is simple between our peoples. Maybe it should be, Richard said. They sat in silence for a while. The Dracor drank more water. Strength was returning to them gradually. The medic pulled out some kind of device and scanned his companions, then offered it toward Richard. Richard shook his head. Keep it. I need to finish fixing my truck. The female sat up straighter. Your vehicle is broken? Coolant line. I can fix it. How long will you survive in this heat with reduced water? Richard did not answer. The medic and the young male exchanged looks. The female pulled something from her belt, a small metallic device. She pressed it and a high-pitched tone sounded. What was that? Richard asked. Emergency beacon. Our people will come. She looked at him steadily. You saved our lives. By our laws, we owe flame debt. You will not die in this desert. In the distance, dust clouds were rising. Something was coming fast. Multiple vehicles, by the look of it. The female struggled to her feet and the other 2 helped her stand. They were still weak but recovering. You should go, the young male said. When they arrive, if you are here, I stay, the female interrupted. He stays under my protection. I am Commander Drath of the 8th Flame Wing. These are Sergeant Vorn and Lieutenant Cass. You gave us life when you could have left us to die. That means something. Richard stood up slowly. The dust clouds were getting closer. He could see ships now, military craft moving fast. His heart was pounding, but he had made his choice in the desert. He would see it through. Richard Webb, he said. Retired transport pilot. Current supply runner. Drath nodded once. Well, Richard Webb, you are about to meet more of my people. I hope your kindness extends to being patient with them. They will not understand what you did here. Not at first. The ships were landing now, sending up massive clouds of sand. Armed Dracor warriors poured out, weapons ready. They surrounded Richard and the 3 survivors in seconds. A large Dracor with dark blue scales stepped forward, clearly in command. Commander Drath, report. Why is there a human with you? Drath straightened despite her weakened state. Her voice carried authority. Captain Torque, this human saved our lives. I declare flame debt. He is under my protection. The captain's eyes widened. Other warriors murmured in their language. Torque looked at Richard like he was something unexpected and possibly dangerous. Commander, this human is enemy. We should take him for questioning. You will not, Drath said flatly. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Richard stood very still, aware that one wrong move could end badly. But Drath stood between him and the other warriors, and Vorn and Cass moved to flank her despite their condition. Captain Torque's hand moved to his weapon. Commander, I must insist. You may insist all you like, Drath interrupted. But I invoke flame debt. Ancient law. This human is firebound. Touch him and you fight me. The standoff continued. Richard realized his simple act of giving water to 3 dying warriors had just become something much more complicated. The desert wind blew across the sand, and somewhere above, more ships were incoming. Whatever happened next, nothing would be simple anymore. 4 more ships descended through the dust clouds while Captain Torque stood frozen in indecision. The largest vessel touched down with precision that spoke of military discipline, and when its ramp lowered, every Dracor warrior present snapped to attention. Even Torque straightened, his earlier aggression draining away. A Dracor even larger than the others emerged from the ship. His scales were deep crimson with silver edges marked by countless scars. He moved with the careful grace of someone who had survived more battles than most warriors ever saw. His eyes swept across the scene and settled on Drath. "Commander Drath, explain." Drath's voice remained steady despite her obvious exhaustion. "Hi, Commander Skrell. Our reconnaissance ship crashed 4 days ago. Navigation failure. We activated distress beacon, but it malfunctioned. We survived the crash, but not the desert conditions. This human found us dying of dehydration and gave us his water supply. He saved our lives. I have declared flame debt." Skrell's gaze moved to Richard, studying him the way a scientist might examine an interesting specimen. "A human. Our enemy. And you gave them water?" "Yes, sir," Richard said, unsure if the honorific translated properly. "Why?" Richard was getting tired of that question. "Because they needed it." "You did not think they might kill you once recovered?" "Thought crossed my mind. Did it anyway." Skrell made a rumbling sound deep in his chest. "Captain Torque, escort Commander Drath and her team to Medical Bay. Lieutenant Cass, I want full report on your condition and the crash details. Move." Torque looked like he wanted to argue, but simply gestured to his warriors. They helped Drath, Vorn, and Cass toward one of the ships. Drath looked back at Richard once, her expression unreadable. Skrell turned his full attention to Richard. "You will come with me. You are not prisoner, but you are not free. You are something that has not existed between our peoples before. We must decide what that means." Richard followed Skrell into the massive ship. The interior was built for beings twice human size, making Richard feel like a child in an adult's world. The temperature was sweltering. Dracor clearly preferred heat. Sweat soaked through his clothes within minutes. They passed through corridors filled with Dracor warriors who stopped to stare. Some looked curious. Others looked hostile. News traveled fast in military ships, and Richard could guess what they were thinking. "Human on board, enemy prisoner, guest?" Nobody seemed sure. Skrell led him to a smaller chamber and gestured to a bench. Richard sat, grateful to be off his feet. The High Commander settled across from him, tail curling around his body in what Richard guessed was a relaxed posture. "Tell me about yourself, Richard Webb." So Richard talked. 30 years in Earth Defense Forces. Transport pilot. Flew supply runs, troop movements, evacuation missions. Saw combat but was not frontline fighter. Lost friends. Lost his co-pilot. Retired because he was tired of war. Started running supplies on neutral worlds because it was safer, and he had a daughter who needed him to stay alive. Skrell listened without interrupting. When Richard finished, the High Commander was quiet for a long moment. "You understand flame debt?" Skrell finally asked. Commander Drath mentioned it. "Some kind of honor thing?" "More than honor. It is foundational to Dracor culture." Skrell leaned forward slightly. "My people evolved on world even harsher than Dusthaven. Water was scarce. Sharing water meant sharing life itself. Over generations, this became sacred law. To give water to dying warrior creates unbreakable bond. The saved owes life to the saver. But you are a different case. How so? You are enemy. You expected nothing in return. By our understanding, this creates deeper debt. Commander Drath now owes you her life and more. Her honor demands she protect you absolutely. Sergeant Vorn and Lieutenant Cass carry same debt. This is why they stood against Captain Torque. Why they would have fought their own kind to defend you." Richard absorbed this information. "I did not do it for any kind of debt. I just could not leave them to die. That makes it more significant, not less." Skrell's eyes were intense. "Do you know what you have done? You have placed 3 of my warriors in position where they must protect human above their own mission, above orders, above species loyalty. This has never happened before. I am sorry if I complicated things." "Sorry?" Skrell made that rumbling sound again, and Richard realized it might be laughter. "Human, you have created crisis and opportunity simultaneously. There are those in my fleet who will see this as propaganda. Others will see it as betrayal. But some like me see something else. What? Possibility." Skrell stood and began pacing. "This war has gone on for 12 years. Both sides have lost much. My people fight because we believed humans would destroy us if we showed weakness. Your people fight because you believe we are monsters who cannot be reasoned with. What if both beliefs are wrong?" Richard thought about his years of service. "I have seen Dracor raids. Colonies burned. Civilians killed. And I have seen human attacks on our outposts. Hatchlings left orphaned. Supply lines destroyed, causing starvation." Skrell stopped pacing. "We are both warrior peoples. We both fight to protect our own. Perhaps we are not so different. So what happens now? Now I must make decision. Part of me says take you to Intelligence Division. Extract everything you know about human military. Part of me says honor Flamedet and return you safely. Part of me says use you as bridge between our peoples. Skrell's tail lashed once, but there is fourth option. General Hrax leads faction that wants war to escalate. He will see you as threat to his goals. He will push for your execution. Richard's mouth went dry. When you say execution, I mean exactly that. Hrax believes showing mercy to humans makes us weak. He has significant support among younger warriors who know only war, who were taught humans are existential threat. Are we? A threat, I mean? Skrell considered this carefully. You are expanding into territories we claimed. We are expanding into territories you claimed. Neither side will back down. That makes us threats to each other, yes. But existential? I am no longer certain. Your action today suggests humans capable of mercy even toward enemies. That is not trait of species that must be exterminated. A tone sounded through the ship. Skrell touched a device on his wrist and listened to rapid Dracor speech. His expression darkened. Hrax has just arrived on the flagship. He demands emergency council meeting. He wants to challenge my authority over your status. Skrell looked at Richard steadily. In Draker military, leadership disputes can be settled through trial by combat. It is ancient tradition, rarely invoked, but legal. Hrax is going to invoke it. You would have to fight him, or choose champion to fight in my place. I am old Richard Webb. I have fought many battles. But Hrax is in his prime and has never lost single combat. Skrell's voice was calm despite the implications. If he wins, he takes command of this fleet. And you die. Richard felt ice in his stomach despite the oppressive heat. What about the Flamedet? If Hrax controls fleet, he can declare special circumstances that override tradition. It has happened before in extreme situations. Your presence would be considered extreme. So I am going to die because I gave 3 people water in the desert. Possibly. Skrell moved toward the door. But I did not survive 200 years of warfare by accepting defeat easily. Come. You should see what happens next. Your fate will be decided in the next hours regardless. They walked through more corridors to a massive chamber that must serve as command center. Dozens of Dracor officers were present, with more arriving constantly. The tension was palpable. Richard saw Drath enter with Vorn and Cass. She had been treated and looked stronger, though still favoring her right side. When she saw Richard, relief crossed her features. Then another Dracor entered, and the room went silent. General Hrax was enormous even by Dracor standards, with scales like polished obsidian and eyes that burned with intensity. He radiated aggression, violence barely contained. Warriors moved aside as he strode directly to Skrell. High Commander, I invoke right of challenge. On what grounds? Skrell's voice was neutral. You bring enemy onto flagship. You entertain notion of peace while our warriors die in combat. You allow human to corrupt our traditions. Hrax pointed at Richard. That thing should be interrogated and executed. Instead, you treat it as guest. This is failure of leadership. Murmurs ran through the assembled officers. Some nodded agreement. Others looked uncertain. Skrell remained calm. I follow ancient law. Flamedet is sacred. Flamedet applies to warriors, not vermin. This human is not warrior. It is spy, saboteur, propaganda tool. Convenient that it appeared exactly when and where our reconnaissance team crashed. Too convenient. Richard started to protest, but Drath caught his eye and shook her head slightly. Let them argue. You accuse me of poor judgment, Skrell said. Very well. I accept challenge. Choose your terms. Trial by combat. Traditional rules. If I win, I take command of 8th Fleet, the human dies. Any who supported it face charges of treason. Drath tensed beside Vorn and Cass. Other officers shifted uncomfortably. This was more than just Richard's life now. This was about faction control of significant military force. Skrell was silent for a long moment. And if I win? I submit to your command. Withdraw my objections. The human's fate is yours to decide without interference. Agreed. But I am old, Hrax, you know this. I invoke right to champion. Hrax smiled, showing many sharp teeth. Of course. Who will fight for you, old one? Who will risk death for human and failed leader? The chamber went absolutely silent. Every eye turned to Skrell, waiting to see who he would choose. Richard barely breathed. Then Drath stepped forward. I will fight. Hrax laughed, harsh sound like stones breaking. You are wounded. You are weak from desert exposure. You could barely stand hour ago. I carry Flamedet, Drath said firmly. My honor demands I protect the one who saved me. I will fight as High Commander's champion. You will die, Hrax said flatly. Perhaps, but I will fight. Hrax's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Excellent. I accept Commander Drath as Skrell's champion. But I too choose champion. He gestured toward the entrance. Gorth, come forward. A Draker even larger than Hrax entered the chamber. Gorth was covered in scars, his scales dark gray like stone, his movements predatory. Richard had seen many warriors in his years, but this one radiated pure violence. Vorn whispered to Richard, translating unnecessarily. Gorth has killed 17 opponents in single combat. He has never been defeated. Drath looked at Gorth without flinching, but Richard saw her hand touch her wounded side briefly. She was not at full strength. Everyone in the room knew it. Skrell spoke formally. Trial by combat is accepted. It will take place in ceremonial arena within the hour. All senior officers will attend. The winner's commander takes control of fleet and decides humans' fate. This is witnessed and binding. Hrax nodded once and left, Gorth following like a living weapon. Most of the other officers filed out, talking in low voices. Richard, Drath, Vorn, Cass, and Skrell remained. Richard looked at Drath. You do not have to do this. Yes, she said simply. I do, you gave life. I protect life. This is flame debt. This is honor. You are going to die for someone you met few hours ago. Drath's eyes met his. You were willing to die of thirst for someone you met few minutes ago. Do not question my choice when you made same one. Richard had no answer for that. He had given water because it was right thing to do. Drath would fight because it was right thing to do. They were not so different after all. Skrell placed a clawed hand on Drath's shoulder. You do not have to win. You only have to fight with honor. That will be enough. Drath nodded once. I will fight with everything I have. They had less than an hour before the combat would begin. Richard realized his simple act of mercy in the desert had spiraled into something vast and complex. A warrior was about to risk her life because he had given water to dying strangers. He thought about his daughter, who called him coward. He wondered what she would think of this. He wondered if he would live long enough to tell her. The ceremonial arena was ancient by Dracor standards, built into the heart of the flagship when it was first commissioned decades ago. Richard stood in the observation gallery behind reinforced glass that still radiated heat like an oven. The arena floor far below glowed orange-red, heated to temperatures that would kill a human in minutes. This was where Dracor settled matters of honor in the traditional way. Cass stood beside Richard, having insisted on explaining what was about to happen. Vorn paced nearby, wings twitching with agitation. Through the glass, Richard could see the arena filling with Dracor warriors, hundreds of them, coming to witness the combat that would decide so much. The heat is part of the test. Cass explained quietly. Combat in our ancestral conditions. Only the strongest survive. Drath is tough, experienced, tactical, but Gorth is perfect warrior. Bigger, stronger, faster. And Drath is still recovering from the desert. Her reserves are low. Can she win? Richard asked, though he feared the answer. Cass hesitated too long before responding. She can fight with honor. That is what matters. Below, 2 entrances opened on opposite sides of the arena. Drath emerged from one, and even from this distance Richard could see how she moved carefully, conserving energy. She wore minimal armor, traditional style for honor combat. In her hands she carried 2 curved blades that looked like extensions of her arms. From the opposite entrance came Gorth. The massive warrior dwarfed Drath, his dark scales absorbing the arena's glow. He carried a single heavy blade, the kind designed to crush through armor and bone in one strike. The crowd roared when he raised it high. High Commander Skrell descended to a judge's platform at arena's edge. His voice boomed through speakers, speaking in Dracor tongue. Cass translated in whisper. He recites the ancient laws. Combat until yield or death. No interference. Winner's commander takes fleet control. Loser's commander submits. He asks both warriors if they understand and accept terms. Drath and Gorth both signaled agreement. The crowd grew silent. Skrell raised one arm, held it high for 3 heartbeats, then dropped it. The fight began. Gorth charged immediately, covering ground with frightening speed for something so massive. His blade swung an arc designed to bisect Drath completely. But she was not there. She rolled aside at last possible moment, blades flashing out to score shallow cuts across Gorth's thigh as she passed. First blood to Drath. The crowd made sounds of surprise. Gorth barely seemed to notice the wounds. He spun and attacked again, this time with series of strikes that drove Drath backward. She blocked and dodged, her smaller blades meeting his heavy weapon with precise angles that deflected rather than stopped his strikes. Fighting smart, using technique against strength. She cannot win by defense alone, Vorn muttered. She must hurt him badly or he will wear her down. Richard watched Drath move. Even injured, even exhausted, she fought with grace that spoke of decades of training. Every motion efficient, no wasted energy. She was buying time, studying Gorth's patterns, looking for weakness. Gorth seemed to realize this and changed tactics. Instead of powerful swings, he began using his size to control space, backing Drath toward the arena wall. Once trapped, her mobility advantage would vanish. Drath tried to circle away, but Gorth cut her off. His blade came down like hammer, and Drath barely raised her own weapons in time. The impact drove her to one knee. The crowd roared approval. Gorth raised his blade for killing blow. Drath exploded upward inside Gorth's guard, her blades crossing at his throat. For a frozen moment, they stood locked, Drath's weapons drawing twin lines of blood across Gorth's neck, not deep enough to kill, but showing she could have. Then Gorth's fist crashed into her side, the wounded side, and Drath flew backward. She hit the ground hard and did not get up immediately. Gorth touched his neck, looked at the blood on his claws, and roared. The sound was pure rage. He had been marked, embarrassed, shown vulnerable. He charged at Drath with no technique at all, just fury. "Get up," Richard whispered. "Get up, get up, get up!" Drath rolled aside as Gorth's blade shattered the floor where she had been. She regained her feet, but slower now, favoring her side worse than before. The earlier impact had damaged something. Her breathing was labored even from this distance. Gorth pressed his advantage, raining blows that Drath could barely deflect. One strike got through, blade edge cutting across her shoulder. Another caught her leg. She was bleeding from multiple wounds now, weakening with each passing moment. The crowd was chanting Gorth's name. Richard's hands were pressed against the glass. He wanted to do something, anything, but this was beyond him. All he could do was watch someone die because she had chosen to protect him. Drath stumbled, went down to one knee again. Gorth stood over her, blade raised. The crowd was screaming. Hrack stood in his observation platform, already looking victorious. Skrell watched impassively, but Richard saw the old commander's tail coiled tight with tension. "Yield," Gorth roared down at Drath. "Yield and I will make death quick." Drath looked up at him. Blood ran down her face from cut above her eye. She was breathing hard, but her voice carried clearly. "No." She launched herself from kneeling position, driving both blades up with everything she had left. Gorth tried to block, but his blade was out of position from the overhead strike. Drath's weapons found gaps in his armor, sinking deep into his shoulder and side. Gorth screamed and backhanded her away. She hit the wall with sickening impact and slid down. Gorth staggered, pulling one of Drath's blades from his shoulder with his free hand. Dark blood poured from his wounds. He was badly hurt now, but Drath was not getting up. The arena fell silent. Gorth limped toward Drath's unmoving form. She stirred weakly but could not stand. Her remaining blade lay just beyond her reach. Gorth kicked it away. He stood over her, breathing heavily, bleeding from multiple wounds but still standing. "Yield," he said again, quieter now. Drath tried to push herself up and failed. She lay there, defeated but unbroken. "No yield. Kill me or I continue fighting." Gorth raised his blade. The crowd was silent now, watching. This was the moment. Death blow was coming. Richard did not think. He grabbed the communicator Cass had clipped to observation panel and keyed it on. "Stop!" His voice boomed across the arena. Every Draker turned to look at the observation gallery. Gorth paused, blade still raised. Skrell's eyes widened in shock. "Human has no voice here," Hrack screamed from his platform. "This is our law, our way." "Silence him." But Richard kept talking. "Gorth, you are warrior, yes? You understand honor? Then look at what you are about to do." Gorth stared up at the gallery, confusion on his scarred face. "I finish combat. She will not yield." "She will not yield because she made promise to protect me," Richard shouted. "She owes flame debt. Her honor demands she fight until death. But what honor is there in killing warrior who is already beaten? Where is victory in executing someone who saved 3 dying warriors in desert? You are enemy." Gorth roared back. "Your life means nothing. Then why did your people evolve flame debt?" Richard was making this up as he went, using everything Skrell had told him. Why make sharing water sacred if life means nothing? Drath gave me answer in desert. She said nothing is simple between our peoples. But maybe it should be. Maybe warrior should recognize warrior. Maybe honor means more than just winning. Gorth looked down at Drath, then at his own wounds, then back at Richard. I do not understand. I gave water to dying enemies because leaving them to die was wrong, Richard said more quietly now. Drath fights to death because breaking her word is wrong. You have proven you are stronger warrior. Everyone here sees it. But what kind of warrior kills the defeated when they fought with courage? Is that Dracor honor? Because if it is, then maybe my people are right to fear you. The silence in the arena was absolute. Gorth stood frozen, blade still raised. Drath lay bleeding below him, watching with dimming eyes. Every warrior present was listening. Gorth slowly lowered his blade. What are you doing? Hrax screamed. Kill them both. Kill the traitor and the human. Gorth turned to face Hrax's platform. No, I am your commander. I order you to finish this. You order me to abandon honor, Gorth said, his voice carrying across the arena. To kill defeated warrior who fought bravely. To prove strength through cruelty instead of justice. This is not honor. This is not why I became warrior. He turned back to Drath and extended his hand to her. You fought well, Commander. You did not yield. Your honor is satisfied. Mine is satisfied. Combat is done. Drath stared at his offered hand in disbelief. Then slowly, painfully, she reached up and grasped it. Gorth pulled her to her feet. She swayed but stood, and the two warriors faced each other as medical teams rushed into the arena. Skrell rose from the judge's platform. Combat concludes without death. Rare but legal outcome. Both warriors showed courage. Both showed honor. As judge, I declare Gorth victor by opponent's inability to continue. But I also recognize Commander Drath satisfied flame debt through willingness to die. Both are honored. This is outrage. Hrax stormed down from his platform toward the arena floor. They colluded. The human interfered. This combat is invalid. Human has no authority here but spoke truth, Skrell said calmly. Gorth made his own choice. Combat is valid. You chose champion. Champion chose mercy. You are bound by result. Hrax looked around at the assembled warriors. Many were nodding, murmuring agreement. The younger warriors especially seemed moved by what they had witnessed. Gorth stood beside Drath now, supporting her weight, and the image was powerful. Hrax's expression twisted with rage. You will regret this, Skrell. All of you. This is not over. He stormed out of the arena. His supporters looked uncertain, but most followed. Gorth remained, helping Drath as medical staff worked on her wounds. Vorn and Kaz rushed down from the observation gallery. Richard followed more slowly, exhausted from tension and heat. By the time he reached the arena floor, Drath was being stabilized. She looked at Richard through pain and exhaustion. You broke protocol. Could have made things worse, but did not, Gorth rumbled. He looked at Richard with new respect. You spoke truth I needed to hear. Sometimes warriors forget honor in pursuit of victory. You reminded me why I fight. He touched his wounded shoulder and winced. Though your friend does not pull her strikes. You are a good fighter, Drath said weakly. Would have killed me. Yes. But human made me remember being good fighter and being honorable fighter are not always same thing. Gorth glanced at Skrell. Hi, Commander. I formally request transfer to Commander Drath's unit. I would learn more about this flame debt and the human who creates such chaos. Skrell's rumbling laugh echoed across the arena. Request granted. You three appear to be forming interesting team. He looked at Richard. And you, Richard Webb, continue to surprise. You turned combat into lesson. Perhaps there is hope for our peoples after all. Richard was too tired to respond with anything but truth. I just did not want to watch someone die for me. Not after she tried so hard to live. That, Skrell said quietly, is exactly why this matters. Medical teams took Drath away for treatment. Vorn and Kaz went with her. Gorth followed limping but unbowed. Richard started to leave, but Skrell stopped him. Hrax meant his threat. This is not over. He has support among hardline factions. He will try again more carefully next time. You have become symbol now, Richard Webb. Symbol of possible peace. That makes you target. What do I do? Survive. Let me handle military politics. But know this. Skrell's ancient eyes held secrets and sadness. Word of today spreads already. Both sides will hear. Human who gave water. Draker who protected him. Combat that ended in mercy. Stories have power. This story will spread like fire across dry grass. It may help peace, or it may make extremists desperate enough to do terrible things. Richard thought about his daughter, about his simple life running supplies, about the 3 warriors dying in the desert that started all this. I just gave them water. Yes? And water in desert means everything. Skrell turned away. Rest now. Tomorrow we decide what comes next. For you, for my fleet, for our peoples. Richard made his way back to his quarters, mind spinning with everything that had happened. In less than a day he had gone from fixing a broken truck to being at center of potential shift in galactic war. All because he could not leave dying warriors in the sand. He collapsed on the bunk in his quarters, too tired even to remove his boots. Sleep came hard despite exhaustion. He kept seeing Drath on the arena floor, kept hearing Gorth's blade whistling through air, kept wondering what would have happened if he had stayed silent. But he had not stayed silent. Could not stay silent. And now the consequences would ripple outward in ways he could not predict or control. Richard woke to someone pounding on his door. His whole body ached from stress and heat exposure. For a moment he forgot where he was, then reality came flooding back. Draker flagship. Trial by combat. Everything that happened yesterday. The pounding continued. Richard Webb. Open door. He recognized Vorn's voice and stumbled over to key the door open. The young Dracor warrior pushed inside, agitated in ways Richard had not seen before. His wings were half spread, a sign of stress. What happened? Richard asked. Everything happened. Stories everywhere. Every ship in fleet talking about it. Human news networks have it too. Someone recorded arena combat and transmitted it before security could stop them. Vorn pulled up a display on his wrist device. Look! Richard saw footage of himself shouting at Gorth, of Drath bleeding on arena floor, of Gorth lowering his blade and helping her stand. The video had text overlays in both human and Dracor languages. It had been viewed millions of times already. Both sides are reacting, Vorn continued. Human military wants to know why you are on Dracor flagship. Dracor High Council wants explanation from Skrell. Media calling you peacemaker, traitor, hero, spy. Everyone has opinion. Nobody knows truth, and what is the truth? Richard asked quietly. Vorn looked at him for a long moment. Truth is, you gave water. Everything else grew from that simple act. But simple does not mean small. You changed something, Richard Webb. Old warriors like Skrell and Drath see it. Young warriors like me feel it. Even Gorth, who was pure weapon, now questions what we fight for. Is that good or bad? Do not know yet. But High Commander wants you in Command Center immediately. Human military is sending delegation. They want to talk. Richard dressed quickly and followed Vorn through the ship. Draker warriors stared as they passed, but the hostility from before had shifted to something else. Curiosity maybe, uncertainty. Some nodded respectfully. Others looked away, conflicted. The command center was chaos. Dozens of officers arguing. Screens showing tactical displays, communications coming in from every direction. Skrell stood at the center of it all. An island of calm in the storm. Drath was there too, heavily bandaged but on her feet. Gorth stood beside her like a bodyguard. Richard Webb, Skrell called. Come here. We have situation, Richard approached. A large screen showed a human warship, one of Earth Defense Force's heavy cruisers. The name on its hull read, Defiant Sky. That is Admiral Patricia Stone's flagship, Skrell explained. She commands human forces in this sector. She has requested direct communication. She specifically mentioned you by name. How does she know about me? The video spread to human networks within hours. Your face is now very recognizable. Skrell gestured to the screen. She wants negotiation. Face to face. On neutral ground. She offered the same space station where we met before the war started. Before everything went wrong. You trust her? Richard asked. I trust very little, but I also recognize opportunity when I see it. If she wants to talk, we should listen. You will come with us. Me? I am just a transport pilot. You are Symbol now, Drath said, her voice rough but clear. Both sides know your face. Know what you did. Your presence will matter more than any diplomat. An hour later, Richard found himself on a shuttle heading toward a space station that straddled the border between human and Dracor space. The station was ancient, built back when both species thought they could share the frontier. That optimism had died in fire and blood years ago. Now it sat empty except for automated systems. a monument to failed peace. The shuttle docked. Skrell led the delegation with Drath, Gorth, Vorn, Cass, and Richard behind him. As they entered the station, Richard saw human soldiers waiting on the other side of the docking bay. Their weapons were lowered but ready. The tension was immediate. A woman stepped forward from the human group. She wore Admiral's insignia and moved with confident authority. Her hair was gray, her face lined from years of command. When she saw Richard, surprise crossed her features. "Webb? Richard Webb? I thought you retired." Richard stared. "Admiral Stone? You know each other?" Skrell asked. "We served together 20 years ago," Stone said. "Different ships, same campaign. Webb flew the transport that evacuated my wounded Marines from station under heavy fire. Half my crew alive today because of him." She looked at Richard with mix of respect and confusion. "What are you doing on a Dracor flagship?" "Long story, Admiral. Well, we have time. Let us go somewhere we can talk without weapons pointed at each other." They moved to an observation lounge that overlooked the stars. Human and Dracor delegations sat on opposite sides of a large table. Richard ended up between them, literally and figuratively. Stone spoke first. "Hi, Commander Skrell. 3 days ago I would have said meaningful negotiation between our peoples was impossible. Then I saw a video of my former comrade giving water to your warriors in the desert. Saw your commander willing to die to protect him. Saw your champion choose mercy in combat. I want to understand what I witnessed." Skrell gestured to Richard. Perhaps he should explain. So Richard told the story again. Finding the dying Dracor, sharing his water, the flame debt. The challenge from Hrax, the arena combat. He kept it simple, factual. When he finished, Stone was quiet for a long moment. "That is either the most foolish thing I ever heard or the most brave," she finally said. "Probably both." "I just did what seemed right," Richard said. "Right." Stone leaned back. "You know what started this war, Webb? Border dispute over 3 worthless systems. Neither side would back down because backing down meant showing weakness. Then someone fired first. We still do not know who. Probably does not matter anymore. 12 years later, we are both bleeding ourselves dry over pride and fear. My people fight because we believe yours will destroy us if we do not." Skrell said carefully, "You expand faster than we do. You have more worlds, more resources. Eventually you will see us as obstacle to be removed. And we fight because your warriors attacked our colonies," Stone countered. "Civilians died. We will not tolerate that. Your people attacked our supply convoys. Hatchlings starved." The 2 commanders glared at each other across the table. Richard saw it clearly now. Both sides had legitimate grievances. Both had committed atrocities justified as necessary. Both were trapped in spiral of escalation with no clear path out. "This is pointless," one of Stone's officers muttered. "We should not be here." "Agreed," a Dracor officer rumbled from the other side. But Drath spoke up. "Tell me something, Admiral. Why did you really agree to this meeting?" Stone looked at her. "Because I am tired. Tired of losing ships. Tired of sending condolence letters to families. Tired of ordering attacks knowing more will die. When I saw that video, I saw something I have not seen in years. 2 warriors from opposite sides treating each other with honor. Made me remember why I joined military. To protect my people, not to kill others." "Same reason I fight," Drath said quietly. "To protect, to defend. But somewhere in 12 years of war, protecting became killing. Defending became attacking. I forgot difference until Human gave me water when he should have left me to die." Gorth shifted in his seat. "I was taught humans are monsters without honor. That mercy is weakness. Then I watched Human risk death to save enemy. Watched Commander fight to death rather than break promise. These are not actions of monsters or weak beings. These are warrior actions. My soldiers are warriors too," Stone said. "They fight with courage. They care for their wounded. They mourn their dead. They are not monsters either." The room fell silent. Richard looked around the table and saw something shifting. Not peace, not yet, but recognition. Both sides were acknowledging the other's perspective in ways that had not happened in years. Cass pulled out a data pad. "I compiled casualty statistics from both sides over last 5 years. May I show them?" Skrell nodded. Cass projected the data where everyone could see. The numbers were staggering. Tens of thousands dead, hundreds of ships destroyed, entire colonies wiped out, resources exhausted, and the trajectory showed it only getting worse. "At current rate," Cass said quietly, "war will last another 20 years minimum. By then both civilizations will be crippled, Neither will truly win. Both will lose everything that mattered. So what do you propose? Stone asked. Skrell looked at Drath, then at Richard, then back at Stone. Ceasefire immediate, pull back to defensive positions. Prisoner exchanges. Humanitarian corridors. Then real negotiations about borders, trade, coexistence. My government will never agree, Stone said, but her voice lacked conviction. Mine neither, Skrell admitted. But governments follow where militaries lead. If we agree, if our fleets stand down, politicians will follow. They will claim credit and declare victory, but they will follow. You would risk your position for this? Stone asked. I saw the video. I know there are factions that want you removed. Yes, Skrell said simply, because continuing this war is greater risk. To my people, to yours, to everyone. Stone looked at her officers. They looked uncertain, but none objected. She turned back to Skrell. If we do this, extremists on both sides will call us traitors. They will try to sabotage any peace. Cracks will not be your only enemy. I know. That is why we need public support. Why the video matters. Ordinary soldiers, ordinary citizens, they are tired too. They want peace even if they do not say it out loud. We give them reason to hope. They will back us against extremists. This is insane, one of Stone's officers said. A week ago we were killing each other. Now we are talking peace because one man gave some water? Yes, Richard said, speaking up for the first time in a while. Because that one act reminded everyone that enemies are still people. That warriors can respect warriors even across battle lines. That honor matters more than pride. If we can see that, others can too. Stone drummed her fingers on the table, thinking. Finally she nodded. All right. I will take this to my superiors. Recommend ceasefire negotiations. But I need guarantee from you, High Commander. Your word that your fleet will honor ceasefire if it is agreed. You have it, Skrell said. On my honor as warrior and commander. The two leaders stood and faced each other across the table. Slowly, carefully, they extended their hands. Stone's small human hand grasped Skrell's massive clawed one. The image was powerful, and Richard knew someone was recording it. Good. Let both sides see their leaders choosing peace. The meeting continued for hours, working out logistics, communication protocols, verification methods, neutral zones for prisoner exchanges. It was tedious, complex work. But it was also the foundation of something that had not existed in 12 years. Hope. As the meeting finally broke up, Stone pulled Richard aside. You know this will not be easy. Extremists will push back hard. They might try to kill you, kill Skrell, kill anyone associated with peace. I know, Richard said, but I did not give those warriors water just to watch the war continue. If there is chance to end this, we have to try. Stone smiled grimly. You always were stubborn. That is why you survived when so many others did not. She glanced at Drath and Gorth, who were waiting for Richard. You have strange friends now, Webb, but good ones, I think. Watch each other's backs. You will need to. The human and Dracor delegations departed separately, but the atmosphere had changed. There was still distrust, still caution, but also possibility. Richard returned to the shuttle with his Dracor companions, exhausted but cautiously optimistic. Do you think it will work? Vorn asked. I do not know, Richard admitted. But for the first time in years, we are trying something other than killing each other. That has to count for something. Drath touched his shoulder gently. Thank you, Richard Webb, for water, for honor, for reminding us what we fight for. I could say same to you, Richard replied. As the shuttle returned to the flagship, Richard looked out at the stars and thought about his daughter. He hoped she was watching the news. Hoped she saw what happened here. Hoped she understood that walking away from war did not make him a coward. Sometimes the bravest thing was finding another way. His communicator buzzed. Message from unknown sender. He opened it and his blood went cold. We have your daughter. If you want to see her alive, you will denounce the Dracor as monsters. You have 24 hours. Tell anyone and she dies. The message included a photo. His daughter, tied to a chair, terror in her eyes. Behind her stood armed figures in unmarked uniforms. Richard's hands shook. Drath saw his expression. What is wrong? He showed her the message. She read it, her eyes hardening. Extremists. Moving faster than we expected. They have my daughter. Richard's voice was hollow. They want me to destroy what we started here. Want me to lie about you, about all of this. Gorth leaned over to see the message. Where is she? I do not know. They did not say. Just that I have 24 hours. Richard looked at Drath desperately. I have to save her. She is my daughter. But if I do what they want, then everything we fought for dies, Drath finished. She was quiet for a moment, then she straightened despite her injuries. You saved my life when you had no reason. Flame debt means I protect you and yours absolutely. We will get your daughter back. We? Richard asked. We, Gorth rumbled. I owe you too. For teaching me honor. And us. Vorn and Cass said together. Richard looked at the 4 Dracor warriors who had become unlikely allies. This could destroy the peace before it starts. If you are caught helping me, then we are caught, Drath said firmly. But we will not abandon you. That is not our way. Is not warrior way. Richard felt something in his chest loosen. He was not alone. Whatever came next, he had allies who would stand with him even against their own people if necessary. Thank you. All of you. Thank us when we have her safe, Drath said. Now show me message again. We have work to do. Drath studied the photo on Richard's communicator with professional intensity. They had moved to a secure briefing room on the flagship, away from prying eyes and ears. Skrell had been informed and was coordinating with Admiral Stone, but the rescue would be a small team operation. Fast, quiet, precise. The background, Drath said, zooming in on details behind Richard's daughter. Industrial facility. Human construction. Old style, probably frontier colony era. See these structural supports? That design was common 15 years ago. Can narrow down possible locations. Cass added his analysis. The lighting is artificial but bright. Underground facility or one with sealed windows. Temperature control visible in upper right, older model. This is not modern military installation, abandoned base or repurposed civilian structure. How does that help us? Richard asked, trying to keep panic from his voice. 24 hours was not much time. Vorn pulled up a star map. You were crossing Dust Haven when your truck broke. These extremists would need to grab your daughter quickly once they knew you were on our ship. She was probably close by within 2 or 3 systems. He highlighted several planets. These have abandoned facilities matching the type we see in photo. 3 planets, Gorth rumbled. Too many to search in time. Not if we think tactically, Drath said. Extremists chose Dust Haven region for reason. Remote, neutral, hard to track. They will stay in same region. Somewhere they have established presence. She pointed to one planet on the map. This one. Barren rock called Haven's Edge. Former mining colony abandoned 10 years ago when resources depleted. Perfect hideout for those who do not want to be found. You are guessing, Richard said. I am making educated assessment based on 30 years of military intelligence work, Drath corrected. But yes, some guess involved. However, I note the message came from this sector. She showed the communication trace. And ships detected leaving Dust Haven after news broke about you went to Haven's Edge. Someone is there who does not want attention. It was their best lead. Richard had to trust it. How do we reach her before the deadline? Skrell entered the briefing room at that moment. You will take fast assault shuttle. 5 of you. Drath leads. I am also sending someone else who volunteered. He stepped aside and Admiral Stone walked in behind him, accompanied by a human soldier in Special Forces gear. Captain Anna Rodriguez, Stone introduced. Best tactical officer I have. She wants to help. Rodriguez nodded to the group. I saw the video. I believe in what you are trying to do. Also, my niece is friends with your daughter, Mr. Webb. Nicole talks about you sometimes. I will help get her back. Human and Dracor working together, Vorn said quietly. This is new. Better get used to it, Rodriguez replied. If peace happens, this will be normal. Skrell pulled up tactical data on Haven's Edge. Old mining tunnels go deep. Colony headquarters is here, mostly intact. If they are holding prisoners, probably in the lower levels where scanners cannot penetrate easily. You will go in quiet, extract the target, get out. Do not engage unless necessary. Both human and Dracor extremists may be working together to sabotage peace. You cannot trust anyone you encounter. How long to reach Haven's Edge? Richard asked. 3 hours at maximum speed, Cass answered. Gives us time to plan entry and extraction. Then we leave now, Drath said. Every minute matters. The assault shuttle was built for speed and stealth. It was cramped with 3 Dracor, 2 humans and equipment, but nobody complained. Richard sat strapped in, watching the stars blur past, thinking about his daughter. Nicole was 28, strong and independent. She had chosen humanitarian work instead of military service, wanting to help rather than fight. She was a better person than him in many ways. She could not die because he had tried to make peace. Rodriguez sat across from him, checking her weapons. Your daughter is tough. I met her once during relief operation. She stayed calm during crisis, helped coordinate evacuation. She will hold together until we reach her. What if we are wrong about the location? Richard asked. Then we search everywhere until we find her, Gorth said simply. No other option. Drath was reviewing building schematics that intelligence had pulled from old colonial records. Main entrance will be watched. Service tunnels here and here look intact. We enter from this maintenance shaft. Move through lower levels. Cass, you handle any technical systems we encounter. Vorn, you are rear guard. Gorth and Rodriguez take point with me. Richard stays center, protected. I can fight, Richard protested. You are pilot, not soldier, Drath said firmly. Let us do what we do best. Your job is recognize your daughter and keep her calm once we find her. The 3 hours passed intense preparation. They reviewed plans, checked equipment, went through contingencies. When Haven's Edge appeared on view screen, Richard's stomach tightened. The planet was gray and lifeless, pocked with old mining scars. The abandoned colony was barely visible from orbit, just a cluster of structures slowly being buried by dust storms. The shuttle landed 10 kilometers away, using canyon system to hide their approach. They exited into thin atmosphere that required breathing equipment. The temperature was brutal, swinging between freezing and scorching as the planet's erratic rotation moved them through sun and shadow. They moved quickly despite the terrain. Dracor were surprisingly graceful for their size, and Rodriguez kept pace easily. Richard struggled but pushed through. After an hour of hard travel, they reached the colony perimeter. Sensors detect active power source in main building, Cass reported quietly. Also heat signatures. At least 20 individuals, maybe more. Too many for small extraction team, Rodriguez muttered. This is going to get messy. Then we are smart about it, Drath said. Cass, can you access their systems remotely? Probably. Colonial networks were never very secure. Give me a moment. Cass pulled out a portable interface and started working. After several minutes, he nodded. I am in. Cameras, door locks, environmental controls, all accessible. I can cause distractions if needed. Do it. Create distraction at north end of complex. Make them think intruders coming from that direction. We enter from the south maintenance shaft while they are focused elsewhere. Cass worked his technical skills. Light started flickering in the northern section. Alarms sounded. Through stolen camera feeds, they watched armed figures rush toward the disturbance. Humans and Dracor both, just as Skrell had warned. Extremists from both sides working together. Moving now, Drath whispered into her comm. They crossed open ground and reached the maintenance shaft. It was sealed but old, and Gorth simply tore the door off its hinges with minimal noise. They descended into darkness, switching to night vision. The tunnels were exactly as the schematics showed, dusty and abandoned but structurally sound. Kaz guided them through the maze using the camera system. They avoided patrols, slipping through shadows. Richard's heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. They moved deeper, following heat signatures that Cass had isolated as likely prisoner locations. Finally, they reached a heavy door marked as former storage area. 2 guards stood outside, 1 human and 1 Dracor. Both were armed. Rodriguez and Gorth moved simultaneously. Rodriguez's stun weapon dropped the human before he could react. Gorth grabbed the Dracor and slammed him against the wall hard enough to knock him unconscious. The whole thing took 3 seconds. Kaz opened the door lock. Inside was a large room converted to makeshift prison. 5 people were tied to chairs. Richard saw his daughter immediately. Nicole. She looked up, eyes widening. Dad? What are you? Then she saw the Dracor warriors and terror crossed her face. It is all right. Richard rushed to her, working on her restraints. They are with me. They are here to help. They are the enemy, one of the other prisoners hissed. This is a trick. No trick, Rodriguez said, freeing another prisoner. We are getting you all out. This is rescue operation, Drath explained quietly. We do not have much time. Can you walk? Nicole nodded, rubbing her wrists where the restraints had chafed. She looked at Richard with confusion and fear and relief all mixed together. I saw the videos, the news reports. I did not understand. Later, Richard said. Right now we run. They freed all 5 prisoners. 2 were researchers, 1 was a traitor, 1 was a young soldier. All had been grabbed by extremists for various reasons. All were shocked to see human and Dracor working together. Exit route is compromised, Cass said urgently, checking his feeds. They discovered the unconscious guards. They know we are here. Multiple teams converging on this location. Alternate route? Drath asked. Mining tunnels extend beyond Colony. They lead to old extraction sites. Rough terrain but unguarded. Problem is they are partially collapsed. Better than fighting 20 armed extremists, Rodriguez said. Lead the way. They moved fast, Cass directing through his interface. Behind them, shouts and weapon fire echoed. The extremists were searching systematically. Gorth carried one of the researchers who could not keep pace. Vorn covered their rear, watching for pursuit. They reached the mining tunnels. The passages were narrow, forcing the large Dracor to move carefully. Water dripped from somewhere, and the air smelled of rust and decay. Richard helped Nicole navigate the rough footing, supporting her when she stumbled. I still do not understand, she whispered. Why are they helping us? Because I helped them first, Richard said. Long story. But these warriors are not our enemies, Nicole. They never should have been. Weapon fire erupted behind them. The extremists had found the tunnel entrance. Energy bolts flashed in the darkness, striking stone and creating deadly ricochets. Vorn returned fire, his weapon lighting the tunnel like lightning. Move faster, Drath ordered. They ran through the maze of passages. Cass directed them through intersections, around collapses, always moving toward the extraction site where their shuttle waited. But the extremists were gaining, more familiar with the tunnel system. A blast struck near Richard and stone fragments cut his face. Nicole cried out. Gorth turned back, laying down suppressing fire that forced their pursuers to take cover. There, Cass pointed. Exit is 50 meters ahead. They burst out of the tunnel into harsh daylight. The shuttle was visible across open ground. But so were 3 vehicles, armed extremists pouring out. They were surrounded, caught between pursuers from the tunnel and enemies ahead. This is bad, Rodriguez said, checking her ammunition. Then the sky above them filled with ships, Draker and human vessels, dozens of them, descending rapidly. Admiral Stone's voice came over the emergency frequency. All hostile forces, stand down immediately. You are surrounded. Drop weapons or we will fire. The extremists looked up at the overwhelming force above them. Some dropped weapons immediately. Others hesitated. A Draker extremist raised his weapon toward the rescued prisoners, rage on his face. Drath shot him before he could fire. War is over. Accept it. The fight went out of the remaining extremists. They surrendered, and Marines from both sides moved in to take them into custody. Richard sagged with relief, holding Nicole close. You came for me, she whispered. With them. With Draker warriors, they insisted, Richard said. Flame debt. It means they protect me and mine, absolutely. I gave them water. They risked everything to save you. Nicole looked at Drath, at Gorth, at Vorn and Cass. Thank you. I do not understand this yet, but thank you for saving me. Drath inclined her head. Your father saved us first. We simply honored the debt. That is what warriors do. Admiral Stone and High Commander Skrell landed together, showing unified command. They took custody of the extremist prisoners from both sides, already coordinating investigation and trials. Stone approached Richard. Your daughter is safe. The extremists are captured. Their plan to sabotage peace has failed. What happens now? Richard asked. Skrell answered. Now we show both our peoples what cooperation looks like. Human and Dracor forces working together to stop extremists from both sides, protecting innocents. This rescue will be reported widely. It reinforces the message that peace is possible. We use you again, Richard Webb, Drath said with something that might have been humor. You become symbol whether you want it or not. Nicole looked at her father with new understanding. They called you a coward when you retired. I called you that too sometimes. I was wrong. This took more courage than any battle. I just did what was right, Richard said, the same answer he had given before. Yes, Nicole agreed. That is what makes it brave. The rescued prisoners were loaded onto medical shuttles. Richard and Nicole went together, but not before Richard clasped arms with each of his Dracor companions. Drath, Gorth, Vorn, Cass. They had become more than allies. They had become something neither human nor Dracor had words for yet. Friends across the species divide. As the shuttle lifted off, carrying them to safety, Richard watched the ships below. Human and Dracor vessels side by side, coordinating, working together. It was a small step. There would be many challenges ahead. But it was a beginning. Nicole leaned against his shoulder. Tell me the whole story. From the beginning. I want to understand how we got here. So Richard told her about the desert, about dying warriors, about sharing water when any sane person would have walked away. He told her about flame debt and honor, about combat that ended in mercy, about enemies who chose to see each other as warriors worthy of respect. Nicole listened to it all. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. The water you gave them in the desert. How much was it? 2 containers. Maybe 3 liters total. 3 liters of water, Nicole said softly. That is what shifted an entire war. Richard thought about everything that had happened, all the consequences that rippled from one simple act. Not the water itself. What it represented. Compassion across division. Mercy when vengeance was expected. Recognition that enemies are still people. Those things shifted the war. The water just started it. Will the peace hold? Nicole asked. I do not know, Richard admitted. There will be more extremists, more challenges. Both sides have suffered too much to forgive easily. But we proved something these last few days. We proved it is possible, that warriors from opposite sides can work together, that honor and courage exist independent of species, that we can choose to build instead of destroy. You really believe that? Richard thought about Drath standing in the arena, refusing to yield. About Gorth choosing mercy over victory. About Vorn and Kaz risking everything for someone they barely knew. About Rodriguez joining a rescue mission to prove cooperation was possible. About Admiral Stone and High Commander Skrell shaking hands across a table. Yes, he said, I really do. Nicole smiled, really smiled, for the first time since the rescue. Then maybe there is hope after all. The shuttle continued toward the fleet, toward safety, toward an uncertain but possible future. Behind them, on Haven's edge, the extremists were being taken into custody. Their plan had failed. The peace would continue, fragile but growing stronger. And it all started with a thirsty veteran who gave water to dying warriors in a desert, simply because it was the right thing to do. 6 months passed like water flowing through desert sand, changing everything it touched. Richard stood at the dedication ceremony on Dust Haven, right where his truck had broken down all those months ago. The burning flats looked the same, endless orange sand and merciless heat, but everything else was different. A monument rose from the sand, now 20 feet tall. It showed a human figure handing water to 3 Dracor warriors. The sculptor had captured the moment perfectly, the hesitation and hope, the desperation and dignity. Plaques in both languages told the story simply. No embellishment needed. Just the truth of what happened here. Hundreds of people attended the dedication, human and Dracor, military and civilian, standing together under awnings that protected them from the brutal sun. Media from both species recorded everything. This was more than just a monument. It was a symbol of what they were building together. Admiral Stone spoke first, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd. 6 months ago, war between our peoples seemed eternal. We had forgotten why it started, only knew that it continued. Hatred had become habit. Then one man chose compassion over indifference, and everything changed. She gestured to Richard, who stood with Nicole beside him. He still was not comfortable with the attention, but he had learned to accept it. His daughter squeezed his hand supportively. Richard Webb reminded us that enemies are still people, Stone continued, that warriors can respect warriors across battle lines, that sometimes the bravest thing is not to fight but to reach out your hand in peace. 3 Dracor warriors lived because of his choice. Thousands more, human and Dracor both, lived because of what came after. High Commander Skrell stepped forward next. The ancient warrior looked older now, wearier but satisfied. The peace process had been brutal on him politically. He had faced 3 more challenges to his command. Each time he had prevailed, but barely. The Dracor military was still divided. My people have saying, Skrell said in heavily accented human language, still learning but determined to speak directly to both sides. Fire test metal. War tests warrior. Peace tests civilization. We are being tested now, all of us. Some want return to war. Some cannot let go of hate. But more each day choose different path. Choose what Richard Webb showed us possible. He turned to the monument. This stone will stand for generations. Let it remind future that peace began with simple act. Human gave water. Dracor protected human. Together they proved cooperation stronger than conflict. The formal speeches continued. Politicians from both sides claimed credit and made promises. Richard barely listened. He was watching the crowd instead, seeing human soldiers talking casually with Dracor warriors. Civilian contractors from both species comparing notes on reconstruction projects, children, human and Dracor, playing together without fear or hatred. It was not perfect. There were still incidents. Last month, a Dracor extremist had attacked human diplomatic transport. 2 weeks ago, human radicals had bombed a joint military facility. Both sides had extremists who would rather see everyone burn than accept peace. But each incident brought stronger condemnation from the majority. Each attack strengthened resolve to make peace work. After the ceremony, Richard walked out to the exact spot where he had found Drath, Vorn, and Kaz dying in the sand. The location was marked now with simple stone. He knelt there, touching the hot sand, remembering. "Still processing it all?" a familiar voice asked. Richard turned to see Drath approaching with Gorth, Vorn, and Kaz behind her. She walked without limp now, her injuries fully healed. She wore new uniform marking her as ambassador. Formal position bridging military and diplomatic corps. It suited her. "Just remembering how terrified I was," Richard admitted. "Walking out here with my water having no idea what would happen. I remember being certain you were going to kill us," Drath said, settling onto the sand beside him. The heat did not bother her. "Thought you were going to make it quick or let us suffer. Never imagined you would help." "Why not?" Nicole asked. She had joined them, always wanting to understand more about the events that had changed her father from retired pilot to reluctant peacemaker. "Because we were at war," Cass answered. "Because helping enemy makes no tactical sense. Because compassion toward opponent is weakness in military thinking." "Was weakness," Vorn corrected. "Now we train differently. Both sides. Soldiers learn when to fight and when to show mercy. Learn to see enemy as potential ally. Not easy but necessary." Gorth rumbled agreement. The massive warrior had changed most visibly of all of them. He now led joint training programs teaching human and Dracor forces to work together. His reputation as undefeated champion gave him authority. His choice of mercy in the arena gave him moral weight. Young warriors from both sides listened when he spoke about honor. "How are the joint patrols going?" Richard asked. They had established mixed crews on ships patrolling the border regions, ensuring both sides honored ceasefire. "Better each month," Gorth said. First crews were tense. Lots of distrust. Now they are forming bonds. Fighting side by side against pirates and smugglers builds trust fast. Nothing like shared danger to make warriors respect each other. "We are also seeing cultural exchange," Cass added enthusiastically. The medic had become researcher, studying how to merge human and Dracor medical knowledge. Human doctors learning Dracor techniques, our medics learning from human medicine. Both sides benefit. Saved 3 lives last week using combined methods neither side had alone. Admiral Stone and High Commander Skrell approached the group. Behind them came Captain Rodriguez and several other officers from both sides who had become key figures in peace implementation. "Richard Webb," Stone said formally. "High Commander Skrell and I have discussed this extensively. We want to offer you a position." "I am just a transport pilot," Richard said. "The protest automatic now." "You are symbol of peace," Skrell corrected. "Both sides know your face, know your story. You have credibility neither military nor politicians possess. We want you as official liaison, traveling between our peoples, speaking to those who still doubt, helping maintain what we have built." "I am not qualified." "You are most qualified," Drath interrupted. "You see what matters. Not tactics or politics or power. Just people. That is what peace needs." Nicole touched her father's shoulder. "You should do it, Dad. You started this. See it through." Richard looked at the monument, at the assembled crowd beyond, at his unlikely companions. 6 months ago he had been alone in the desert, facing a simple choice. Now he was surrounded by people from 2 species who had chosen to work together. "All right," he agreed. "I will do it." The next hours were filled with more ceremonies, more speeches, more formal events. But eventually the official business ended and people began to disperse. Some headed to the new joint base being built nearby, others to the shuttle port. The monument would remain, watched over by automated systems and regular visits from both sides. Richard found himself alone with Drath as sunset approached. The burning flats were beautiful in the fading light, orange sand turning gold then red. Twin moons were rising, casting strange shadows. "Do you think it will last?" Richard asked. "Real peace, not just ceasefire?" Drath considered carefully before answering. "I think we have changed something fundamental. Warriors who fought together cannot easily become enemies again. Children growing up seeing both species working together will not understand old hatred. Trade and cultural exchange create connections that are hard to break. But yes, there will be challenges. Some will always want war. Some will never forgive losses. We must be vigilant. That sounds exhausting. Peace requires more effort than war, Drath said. War is simple. Destroy enemy. Win at any cost. Peace is complex. Compromise, understanding, constant work to maintain trust. But it is better. Worth the effort. I never thought I would call a Dracor warrior a friend, Richard admitted. Never thought I would trust one with my life. With my daughter's life. I never thought I would owe flame debt to human, Drath replied. Never thought I would see human and think warrior, ally, friend. But here we are. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set completely. Stars emerged, the same stars visible from Earth and from the Dracor homeworld. The same universe, just seen from different perspectives. Gorth, Vorn, and Kaz joined them as full dark fell. Nicole came too, with Rodriguez. They sat together in the desert where it all began, representatives of two species learning to coexist. I propose toast, Vorn said, pulling out containers of water. He passed them around, both human and Dracor receiving equal shares. To Richard Webb, who shared water when any sane person would have walked away. To flame debt honored, Cass added. To warriors who chose mercy, Gorth continued. To peace, Rodriguez said simply. To peace, everyone echoed. They drank together, water shared freely without thought of scarcity or debt. Just companions in the desert, united by events that had spiraled from single act of compassion. Nicole looked at the assembled group, human and Dracor mixed naturally. Tell me honestly, was it really just about the water? Or was there something more? Richard thought about her question. The water was real. I saw dying warriors and I had water they needed. That part was simple. But what came after, all the complications and consequences, that was about something deeper. Recognition, respect, willingness to see beyond hate and fear. The water just gave us the excuse to find what was already there. What was there? Nicole asked. Possibility, Drath said. Your father gave us possibility. Everything else we built on that foundation. The night grew colder as it always did in the desert. Human and Dracor moved closer together, sharing warmth in the most practical way. The divisions that had seemed absolute 6 months ago now felt artificial, imposed by politics and fear rather than reality. What do you think historians will say about all this? Rodriguez wondered. Centuries from now, how will they explain the war ending? They will probably get it wrong. Skrell's voice came from behind them. The old commander had approached silently. They will look for complex political reasons, strategic calculations, economic pressures. They will write papers and books trying to explain the unexplainable. He settled onto the sand with them, moving carefully with age-stiffened joints. But truth is simple. War ended because one person chose compassion. Others chose to honor that compassion. More chose to follow example. Sometimes history turns on small moments, not grand strategies. This was one of those moments. Do you regret the war? Nicole asked boldly. All those years of fighting? Skrell was quiet for a long time. I regret that it took us so long to find another way. I regret every warrior lost on both sides. I regret the hatred we built and maintained. But I do not regret that we finally found path to peace. Better late than never, as humans say. We say that too, Cass noted. Interesting how similar our peoples are when we look past the surface. That is what extremists fear most, Admiral Stone said, joining the group. They fear we will realize we are not so different, that our conflict was unnecessary, that they wasted lives and resources for nothing. That is why they fight so hard to maintain division. They are losing, Vorn said with satisfaction. Every day more people choose peace. Every day the old hatred weakens. But we cannot be complacent, Drath warned. Extremists are dangerous when cornered. They will try spectacular attacks, attempt to restart the war through atrocity. We must be ready. We will be, Gorth promised. Together. That is what makes us stronger now. The group sat under the stars, talking of plans and hopes, challenges and solutions. They represented something new, something that had not existed before. Not human, not Dracor, something that transcended both, built on shared values that both species recognized. Honor, courage, loyalty, compassion. Eventually, people began to drift away, heading to shuttles and beds. Richard and Drath remained longest, watching the stars wheel overhead. "Thank you," Richard said finally, "for protecting me, for protecting Nicole, for believing in this." "Thank you for giving water when you could have walked away," Drath replied. "For reminding me that being warrior means protecting, not just destroying. For showing my people and yours that another way exists. I still do not feel like I did anything special." Drath made the rumbling sound that was Dracor laughter. "That is exactly why you are special. You see basic decency as ordinary, but in the middle of war, decency is revolutionary." They stood and walked back toward the base together, Human and Dracor, unlikely friends bonded by events that had changed their worlds. Behind them, the monument stood silent guard over the desert, marking the spot where everything changed. In the months and years that followed, Richard would travel between worlds, speaking about peace, mediating disputes, helping maintain the fragile bonds between species. Nicole would join him eventually, bringing her humanitarian expertise to joint relief efforts. Drath, Gorth, Vorn, and Kaz would become leaders in the new era, showing both militaries how to transform from enemies to allies. There would be setbacks. A terrorist attack that killed 30 from both sides, a border dispute that nearly reignited hostilities, political factions that demanded return to war. But each challenge was met and overcome. The peace held and grew stronger, not because it was easy, but because enough people on both sides chose to make it work. Historians would indeed debate the end of the war for generations. They would write about political pressures, resource exhaustion, changing public opinion. Some would get close to the truth. But the real answer was simpler than most could accept. A war that had lasted 12 years and killed thousands ended because one man gave water to 3 dying warriors in a desert, because those warriors chose to honor the dead absolutely, because others saw what was possible and chose to follow. Sometimes the greatest changes begin with the simplest acts. A hand extended in friendship, water shared with the thirsty, mercy shown to the defeated, compassion given freely without expectation of return. Richard Webb never stopped being surprised by what followed his choice that day in the burning flats, but he never regretted it. He had given water because someone needed it. Everything else that came after, all the peace and cooperation and hope, that was just the natural consequence of doing the right thing, and in the end, that was enough. The monument stood for generations, just as Skrill predicted. It became pilgrimage site, place where humans and Dracor would come to remember how peace began. Children of both species would hear the story and learn the lesson. Not a lesson about grand strategy or military might, a lesson about recognizing the person behind the enemy, about choosing compassion over convenience, about the power of simple human decency to change everything. On the monument's base, they had inscribed final line in both languages. 7 words that captured everything that happened. Because they were thirsty, he gave water. Simple truth that had shifted a war and created a future where 2 species learned to walk together under the same stars. No longer enemies, but partners in building something better than what came before. And it all began with a thirsty veteran, a broken truck, and 3 dying warriors in the endless desert sand.